Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Beamer, owner operator of Extra Diet Art by Science, and today I'm going to give you a few little dye test spoilers. So if you haven't already caught up with me on the previous information that I gave about my dye testing, go to my blog, check that out, then come back here and watch this video because I don't want to give anything away. I want it to be sort of like a blind test for you guys as well, where you're looking at the pictures and reading my thoughts about each one, because I think it's kind of an interesting way to sort of figure out which dye brand you want to go with, because the only reason for doing it like this is to choose a brand that you want to go with and just stick with that brand rather than picking different colors from different other brands, because sometimes they don't always play nice together. And I mean, how often do we only come out with primary colors on our fiber? We have a variety of colors that we want to achieve, and a lot of times different colors on the same fiber, and you'll get the best results usually with a dye brand that has colors that are meant to be mixed together. So it's sort of the purpose with this. Now, I've done all the dye testing from brands 1, 2, and 3, and there were 4 colors for each. There was yellow, red, and blue, and then of course black to sort of change the hue a little bit. And that's pretty much at this point all you really need to start dyeing, because you can mix and match colors together and, you know, use a color wheel to sort of gauge what kind of result you're going to get. Now, this last brand, which is brand number 3, that is the winning brand. Now, I want to talk about a few things before I talk about you know, why I chose this one. First of all is when my friend in Japan sent me all of this stuff to test, she said for dye brand 3 that you can use it for both animal fibers and cellulose fibers. And a little warning bell goes off in my head, because based on the chemistry, that shouldn't work. So when you buy fibers from someone like me who they're professional dyers, they use dyes that are low impact for the environment. The reason why they're low impact is because the fixative that we often use for animal fibers is citric acid, which, you know, they put that in orange juice. It's food safe, so it's non-toxic to the environment, and they're called exhaustive dyes, which means when you put the fiber in with the right amount of dye, you'll get an empty or a clear dye bath at the very end of the process. So all of that dye goes into the fiber, and what you rinse down into your drain is a little bit of citric acid maybe and a teeny little bit of dye, but way, way significantly less than you would get at an industrial complex where they're dyeing lots of man-made fibers that just don't take the dye very well. So they're pumping all that waste out into the environment. So these dyes are meant to sort of reduce that effect on the environment. So support people like me. Buy from professional dyers that use environmentally conscious dyes. Anyway, so the kind of dye that you need to use for animal fibers is very different than what you have to use for plant fibers. Also, the process by which you dye those fibers is completely different. Animal fibers, you need heat and about 30 minutes to 60 minutes in an acid bath in order to get those fibers to take in the dye and fix it chemically to the fiber structure. The difference between dyeing and staining is the fact that dyeing is color fast and wash fast. It's chemically bonded together with the fiber, so it's not going to just come off after a half dozen washes. Whereas a stain that hasn't been chemically bonded by anything, it's eventually going to, you know, the color is going to dissipate through many washings. So when I say fixative, I mean it's changing the site in which the dye molecule meets the fiber molecule. There's a little thing in the middle, like an opening, kind of like a puzzle piece, and the acid, the mordant, it sort of helps change the chemical structure of the fiber so that when it attaches, it's all the right piece. You know, they fit together like they're supposed to, rather than, you know, kind of trying to get it together and it's not working. So that's how in a very simplified version, the fixing process for the dyeing works. And that's animal fibers. That's wool, silk, nylon over there. Then on the other side, you have the plant fibers, which usually have to dye for a longer period of time, about 24 hours, and it needs a basic environment. It's also best to not use any heat whatsoever, like a cool environment for about 24 hours, really nothing above 100 degrees. And that is how the fiber and the mordant will interact to get the fiber, or to get the dye to adhere to the fiber. And dyeing cellulose fibers isn't as easy as dyeing animal fibers. It's historically been the case. It's a lot more effort to dye cellulose fibers, and as a result, not 100% of the dye will adhere. And that's, you know, sort of a known thing. We can only do our best to get that to happen. But as a result, you can actually see the differences in the fibers that have been dyed. So, you know, my mind was blown because this particular dye brand could dye both types of fibers. You just changed the method for how you would dye each kind, and then you would have some results, which is what I have here. And I also wanted to talk about how I guess I was a little rusty when I got to this particular brand, and I'm not sure why that's the case, because I had been dyeing these pretty regularly. So this is the faux cashmere. This is nylon, and you see this white stuff here? That's where the dye did not penetrate, and it wasn't absorbed by the fiber at all. Now, it's not the fault of the fiber, because I can show you other examples where the dye took extremely well. This is just my fault. So whenever you're trying to get a really even dye, it's very important that the entire fiber is thoroughly wetted before you put it into the dye bath. And I didn't do that here, which results in this little white spot. And it's not a big deal, but if you're trying to get an even color, this is going to be a problem for you. Everyone makes oopsies. And then over here I have this tencel fiber, which I did the same thing. You can kind of see these sort of lighter spots here. That's because when I had this in the water, the soapy water, to get it nice and wet, I didn't squeeze out enough of the air, I suppose, or I didn't get, like, the fiber didn't get open enough so that the dye would penetrate it. It's kind of like an oil water situation. If you have a dry fiber and you try to dye it, it's not going to take as well because the fiber has some sort of resistance. So it's important to make sure that when you do set up your dyeing, that you properly wet everything. So maybe I took it out of the dye bath, or I took it out of the soapy bath a little too early or something. But live and learn. We all make mistakes, right? I think I say that at least once in every one of my videos. So the thing that I really liked about this brand is I had absolutely no problems getting the dye to form a solution. Now, I'm very concerned about breathing in dye powder, so to alleviate that risk, what I do is I create dye solutions. So it's water mixed with the dye at a certain ratio, and I use that in my calculator so that whenever I'm going to dye something, I can pick which percentage I want the dye to be at, so how saturated the color is going to be. And then I put in the weight of my goods, which, you know, I think I dyed about an ounce or so of each for each batch. And then I put that in and it gives me a number, and I weigh out that much dye solution for each batch that I'm going to do. So that's how I get very consistent results with everything that I dye. And it eliminates that problem with me inhaling the dye powder every time I dye, because I don't want to be, you know, putting myself at risk like that each time. So When I put it in the solution, I do it exactly the same way every single time. And with the other two dye brands I was using, I kept running into these interesting problems where, like, one brand, the yellow dye would just, it refused to be in a solution. Then I had another dye brand where when it was in a solution, it was like thick and goopy and gross. So I had none of those problems. And for me, that is a huge plus, because you want it to be consistent with all your colors, especially if you're only dealing with a few. So that was pretty much the first reason I liked this dye brand. But, as I will show you here, these are the little bags that I was using. I buy a lot of stuff on iHerb because it's sometimes hard to find certain things here in Seoul, so I usually buy there, and I can get things like oatmeal on hand. But across the board, the colors for the merino turned out very well. Now, if you saw my earlier video, I was pointing out how the blue dyed really well on one fiber, but really not so well on the merino. And I have about 20 kilograms? No, not that many, 20 pounds. I have 20 pounds of merino. And I don't want it to dye poorly. I want it to be just as bright and vibrant as anything else I can dye. So as you can see here, I'm comparing the faux cashmere and the merino. So this is the faux cashmere, this is the merino, and the faux cashmere. Notice how this one doesn't have as many white spots. I learned. The color differences are very similar. Well, I think there aren't as many color differences. Whereas before I would have like a really, really dark blue on the faux cashmere and a really, really, really pale blue on the merino. And at first I was thinking, well, maybe it's because of the absorption rate. Maybe the merino took in the dye a little bit more slowly than the faux cashmere. But after seeing these results, I'm fairly certain it had to do with the dye and not what I was doing, and not either what I was doing or the characteristics of the wool. So the dye's fault probably, nothing to do with me or the fiber. So that's good. Saves me an extra step of having to dye more samples just to confirm that. And then the blue turned out very nicely as well. And like I said, it's very similar. This is the faux cashmere and this is the merino. The colors are very similar, which is what I want. If I wanted to, let's say, make some bats with this and I wanted to use some faux cashmere for it, I would probably want to dye everything together in the same dye bath because it saves time and energy. But I just didn't want to have to deal with basically 2 different colors each time I did this, and I didn't want to have to dye them all separately. So this is also really another really great feature about this particular dye brand. And I think the clinching factor is the black. Now, I posted this actually on Facebook because I was really frustrated with how the black was turning out. Dyeing black is really difficult. It's like trying to get Tyrian purple old style. It takes forever to just, I don't know, get it just right. And this one dyed extremely well. It's a little bit more gray than I would like for it to be, but it's definitely the darkest black that I've managed to get versus all the other dyes. Plus, there wasn't any weird bits of unadhered dye in the bottom of my dyeing vessel when I was done, like I did, I think, with the first brand. So we have the faux cashmere over here, and here's the merino. And you can see it's very similar. This one looks a teeny bit green, but overall it was a very, very good black. So there are all my samples. I'm going to post more pictures on my blog because I want to really showcase each of the brand's individual colors. Plus, I really want to show off the plant fibers. I think this is probably the most variety that I've ever dyed before with plant fibers. Before this, I had only really dyed bamboo, maybe tencel once or twice, I think. And, oh no, not tencel, it was just bamboo. So I've only ever dyed bamboo with Procyon dyes, and I'm really happy with how these turned out. I'm really excited to spin them because I've actually never spun flax linen, pure hemp, or pure flax linen. Did you hear me say that? Oh, how embarrassing. Flax and linen are the same thing. Flax and hemp, the two different bast fibers. I've never spun those, and I've also never spun pure tencel. And I've only ever just played with cotton. I've never actually spun cotton. So there's going to be a lot of really great first experiences for me when I actually get to that stage. But what you can expect in a future blog post is me comparing all of the reds from the different dye brands and all of the blues, etc. Because it really does impact what your colorways are going to be. You know, you might be able to remember that I posted that dye brand 2. The blue wasn't, it wasn't like primary blue. It was kind of like a Caribbean blue color. That's a terrible description, I know. But it was pretty much as different as these two. This is the icicle nylon, the really shiny stuff. It was a very different blue, and it raised a lot of interesting possibilities. But knowing what your primary colors are that you're going to deal with, and then starting the blending process, well, how do I make orange? It may not be as simple as combining half yellow and half red to get the quintessential orange. You might have to play around with those lines because it's not going to be perfect on the first try. So there's going to be a lot of follow-up with this brand, plus I have plenty of other dye solution to work through. So you'll also see some further results from that. But I think I'm pretty satisfied with how all the colors turned out. I'm satisfied with all the dye solutions that I made. There were no problems during the process. There was nothing weird going on during it or even after it. And all of the fiber took the dye extremely well, except for my own little hiccup here. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed following me through this blind dye test. It's been enlightening for me, and I hope it's been enlightening for you. And if you are a budding dyer, I suggest that you kind of do a test like this. You can even probably contact the seller and ask for samples or pay for samples just to see how their particular powders work. It's always good. And yeah, so this has been good. I'm going to show some more pictures, talk more about it, even though I probably talked quite a lot about it by now. Hopefully you're not too bored. And I do hope to have actual dyeing videos in the future. We just found out that we have an extension cord for our web camera, so that means I might be able to actually take it to more places than just sitting in front of the computer all the time, and in which case it'll make doing dyeing videos a heck of a lot easier than it is right now. So stay tuned, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions or comments, you can post below. You can find me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. You can also check me out on my blog, where I'll have all this stuff there at some point in the future. I can't guarantee exactly when, but it'll go there. And yeah, if you have anything else that I might be interested in doing, or you want me to sort of pursue on your behalf, I would definitely be interested in checking that out. So you can also leave those kinds of requests below. All right. Well, thanks for watching.